Now stop, don't put your stone fruit in the fridge. Ever had a sour nectarine or a bland apricot? Well, me too. So here are my tips to pick the best stone fruit this summer. So first things first, most farmers will pick stone fruit for aesthetic appeal and shelf life before maturity, which means some of our stone fruit might be a little bit sour or a little bit firm and not exactly as sweet as they could be. So how do you pick a sweet peach? By using your nose. It should smell sweet even if it's firm. So if you can't smell it here at the fruit store on the shelf, then it's likely that the fruit won't be that sweet. So my second tip is to look at the skin, but probably not where you think you should be looking. You see, most people want to look for this red blush and more of it, but actually there are so many different varietals of white and yellow peaches that each varietal has different percentages of blush. What you should look for is this undertone color that hides underneath the blush. You see, this one here is a bit green, and that represents that the fruit was probably picked a little bit too early and isn't as sweet as one that has the yellow or dark orange undertone skin colors, and with the white peach, a dark gray kind of color. So look for the undertone colors, and if they're dark, they'll be better and sweeter. So when is the stone fruit ready to eat? Well, this seam here, line or stitch or suture, is actually the weakest point of the stone fruit. Now, if you gently give this part a squeeze, if it starts to give a little bit, but the sides are still firm, well, actually that stone fruit's ready to eat, and it's gonna be good for the next few days. Whilst you squeeze the sides and it's giving, you probably only got that day to eat it. Now, how about nectarines? Well, you wanna use your eyes and look for these little speckles or dots. What they are is sugar spots, and it's actually sunburn on the skin. What happens is the fruit is dehydrated in that area and it's concentrated the sugars, making the fruit extra sweet. Now, the other thing to note with the sugar spots is you'll find that a nectarine is much more sweet at the bottom than it is at the top, and that's because of the flow and dispersion of carbohydrates. You see, the bottom is a little more colored and it has some dots, but the top doesn't here. Whilst this one has speckles at the bottom and speckles at the top, showing that this fruit is going to be sweet from the bottom all the way to the top. Now, the skin of an apricot is very permeable, and the volatiles under it should tell that it's smelling quite sweet. Now, with apricots, it's really hard for a farmer to pick it fully ripe, because by the time it reaches us, it'll be soft and almost oozing out. So you're gonna find that apricots aren't gonna be as sweet as the one in your auntie's backyard. But do give them a smell, and if they are giving that apricot smell, it's gonna be good to eat. Now, one thing that's really fascinating about all the stone fruit is that they actually don't ripen because they don't have any starch in them. So the starch can't turn to more sugars. It can't actually get physically sweeter. What actually happens with all stone fruit is, as the fruits get affected by the gases around them, the cell walls in the fruit break down and it releases all of its juices. And it could lose up to 20% of its acid too as it ages. So the acidic edge comes off, it's much more juicy, and so it's seemingly much more sweet. Now, this is really important for plums because they're always picked a little bit too sour, even for my liking. So wait till they get a bit soft, they'll be much sweeter, much juicier, and that applies to a lot of the fruits, but especially plums. Now stop! Don't put your stone fruit in the fridge. If you've ever had a rubbery peach or nectarine, it's likely because it's been stored between 3 and 10 degrees. And what happens is the fruit has genes which tell it to ripen and soften up, break its cell walls and become watery. But if you store it in the fridge, those genes get confused, and so when you pull it out of the fridge, leave it on the table, it's gonna be rubbery, it's gonna be very flimsy, and when you cut into it, you're pretty much gonna be able to bend the fruit and the flesh and it's not gonna snap. So please, store your stone fruit at room temperature. Now, there are so many different varietals of stone fruit in Australia. Across the summer season, you'll probably encounter 10 different varieties of black plums. Every 2 weeks, you'll eat a different variety, and that's the same for peaches, nectarines, apricots, and the like. So enjoy all your varietals this summer, and even try some different varietals if you can. Now, this one is actually my favorite. They're flat donut peaches. Now, they're really small and they don't have much flesh compared to the newer varieties around, but what they lack in size, they make up in flavor. Now, they're really intensely sweet and they've got a really lovely tang. And this kind of shape is actually more closely related to the ancient species found in Central Asia thousands of years ago. I hope you have a great summer season of stone fruit.